You know, we tend to think about poverty in a pretty straightforward way. We assume it exists because there just isn't enough to go around. Not enough food, not enough money, not enough stuff. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? Okay, let's dive in and explore a different, and honestly, a much more challenging idea about why poverty is still with us.
I mean, that one question just flips the whole script, right? It suggests that poverty isn't some accident or a natural part of life. It's the result of a specific structure. And in this explainer, we're going to follow the evidence and see exactly how that structure works.
Okay, first things first, we've got to get one thing straight. We are living in the wealthiest, most abundant time in all of human history. The crazy thing, the real paradox, is how this age of incredible plenty exists side by side with extreme poverty.
So let's just take food, for example, to make this really concrete. Right now, our planet produces enough food to feed 10 billion people. That is way more than enough for every single person alive today.
And that leads us to this huge, pretty uncomfortable question, doesn't it? If a lack of food isn't the problem, then what is? How can so much hunger exist in a world with so much food?
So here's the thing, and this is the crucial point. Resources don't flow to where they're most needed. They flow to where the money is. In our global system, food doesn't just automatically go to hungry people, it goes to whoever can pay for it. The problem isn't a lack of supply, it's a lack of access.
So, to really get how this works on a massive scale, we have to follow the money. Let's take a look at something called the value chain trap. It's going to show us where the profits from all these resources actually end up.
And believe it or not, we can see this whole thing play out in something most of us love, a simple chocolate bar. The journey of its main ingredient, cocoa, tells a really powerful story about where value comes from and where it goes.
Okay, check this out. It's kind of wild. The farmers who actually grow and harvest the cocoa beans, they only get about 6% of the final price you pay for that chocolate bar. 6%. Meanwhile, the big chocolate companies and the stores that sell it, they capture over 70%. The value isn't at the source, it's way, way down the line.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. Countries like Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana produce most of the world's cocoa. They are the essential first step, but they are almost totally cut out of the massive profits that are made from their own natural resource.
All right, now take a look at this. This chart shows the top exporters of cocoa products by how much they're worth. You'd expect to see the countries that grow cocoa at the top, right? But nope, it's Germany and the Netherlands. They don't grow a single cocoa bean. But by turning it into chocolate, by processing and manufacturing it, they capture almost all of the value.
So this is the trap, right? It's basically a three-step playbook. Step 1, poorer countries export their raw materials for cheap. Step 2, industrialized nations turn those materials into expensive products. Step 3, they end up capturing the vast majority of the profit.
And look, this isn't just about chocolate. It's so common, in fact, that economists actually have a name for it, the resource curse. And it paints an even bigger, more confusing picture of our global economy.
And it is a total paradox. I mean, you think having lots of oil or diamonds or valuable minerals would be a golden ticket to getting rich. But study after study shows that, weirdly enough, countries that are rich in resources often end up poorer than countries that have very few.
Okay, let's look at a real-world example. It's like a tale of two oil producers. 30 years ago, Nigeria and Indonesia both had tons of oil and their people earned about the same amount of money. But look at them today. Indonesia's per capita income is more than double Nigeria's. They both have the oil, but one got a lot richer and the other didn't.
So, what's the big takeaway here? It's simple, really. Wealth doesn't just come from having resources. It comes from controlling the value you can get from those resources. And that control, that's often held somewhere else entirely.
Okay, but I know what some of you might be thinking. What about that classic argument, the whole "a rising tide lifts all boats" idea, that economic growth will just solve poverty for everyone? Well, some new data really throws a wrench in that idea.
I mean, this has been the driving idea behind global development for decades, right? The assumption that if a country's economy gets bigger, its poverty problem must get smaller. But is that what's really happening on the ground?
Whoa! This shows some data from the United Nations that is genuinely shocking. They looked at a bunch of growing economies and found that in many of them, as the economy grew, the number of people in extreme poverty also grew. How is that even possible? Well, it's because that growth was concentrated in ways that didn't help the poorest people, or in some cases even hurt them. It's a staggering thought,
Growth by itself is not the answer.
So after seeing this, the UNDP basically came to this really stark conclusion. Growth isn't some magic bullet. What really matters is how that growth is structured and who actually gets to benefit from it. Because if the system is designed to concentrate wealth at the top, then growth can just end up making that system bigger and more powerful.
All right, let's put all the pieces of the puzzle together. We've seen that we have more than enough stuff, but access to it is wildly unequal. We've seen how value chains can pull wealth away from the source, and we've seen how economic growth can actually leave the poorest people further behind. So what does it all add up to?
And what it all points to is the central idea of this whole explainer. Poverty as we know it today is not some tragic accident. It's a feature of the system's design. It's not about scarcity, it's about structure.
So when you boil it all down, the real drivers of poverty aren't what we think they are. They're built into the system. Access is all about who has money, not who has need. Value gets sucked up along these global supply chains. Wealth gets concentrated thousands of miles away from the actual resources. And even economic growth can end up just making this whole system stronger.
And all of this leaves us with one last, really big thought. Maybe the most important question isn't about how we can find more resources. Maybe it's about whether we have the courage to rethink the rules, the very design of a system that determines who gets to benefit from the incredible wealth we already have.